Welcome back. Well, as we always say, hope for the best, prepare for the worst. And here to help us prepare for the worst is our emergency preparedness expert, author, Stefan Verstappen, the website chinastrategies.com. Stefan, welcome back. How are you?
I'm doing fine, Richard. How are you doing?
Terrific. So over the last several weeks, we've been talking about how to prepare. It could be any emergency. It could be an extended power outage due to an ice storm. We've certainly experienced that from time to time here in Ontario. That's likely, not going to get any better. Our power grid, not in the best of shape. And, we've talked about emergency food stores, emergency water, emergency medicine stores, how to stock up your pantry and your water and your, drugs and first aid kits and so forth. We've talked about communication, hand cranked radios and ham radios. Today we're gonna kind of shift gears and talk sort of more from the 30,000 foot perspective, and that is how to surround yourself with a support group, an extended family, an extended support group, a community, basically. And you have an online course at chinastrategies.com called The Complete Guide to Forming Communities. So first of all, why do we need people might say, well, I belong to a church group, or, I get along with my neighbors. I go curling every Tuesday. I have my community. What do you mean by a community?
Well, a community is a group of people that have the same objectives, more or less the same ideology, and that come together for a common purpose. Now, the reason we're talking about communities is because, well, the previous, talks we talked about, food and water and being prepared for a disaster. But I believe that we are facing a monumental disaster, the disaster of the complete collapse of our civilization. And look around you right now. We can see it's already starting to collapse. Many people have predicted the collapse of Western civilization. I myself have predicted it in my essay and my YouTube video called Historical Cycles, Are We Doomed to Repeat the Past?, in which I showed that history follows a certain pattern and that all civilizations rise and fall. And I believe we are in the stages where our civilization is falling. And look around, everything is collapsing. The monetary system, we are being hit with hyperinflation like we've never seen before. And eventually this is going to destroy our monetary system. And then what are we going to do? Then look at our medical system. Personally, I have not been to a doctor in 45 years. I will not go to a doctor. I won't go to a hospital. That's just me. I'm pretty healthy. I know my body. But even if you wanted to go to a doctor, can you go and see one? Do you trust them? Look at the events over the last 2 years. If that doesn't put doubt into your mind over the competency of our medical system, then nothing will. And we can see it certainly in the United States. We see it in England, and we're starting to see it here in Canada, that our medical system is collapsing. Well, what else is collapsing? Well, the educational system. Look at what they're teaching children in school. They're coming out of school dumber than ever before. And of course, this is done by purpose. So what are we going to do when the schools are no longer functioning? Where are you going to send your kids? How are you going to educate your children? Now, the other thing we're looking at is a complete collapse of the supply chain, and we're going to be facing food shortages. So where are you going to buy your groceries? Where are you going to get food? We already see the early signs of a collapse of civilization. And as a prepper or somebody that wants to survive, what is the solution when all of these things are gone? Now, we cannot stockpile enough food. We can't do everything ourselves. And so what I did was I looked back through history. What did our great-great-grandparents do? Long before the welfare state, long before the health system, long before, the modern world, people, our great-great-grandparents, the early pioneers and explorers of this country, had to fend for themselves. They had to do all of this for themselves. And how did they do it? They did it by creating communities. And these communities provided all of those things I just mentioned: healthcare, food, education, and banking, things like that. And they were far more successful at doing that than our current government is doing. So we got to go back to the old ways, Richard.
So the complete guide to forming communities, which is available online at chinastrategies.com, and we'll be talking about this over the course of the next several weeks at least. You'll teach people. I mean, do you recommend? Well, we'll get into this in the second segment coming up. But I'd be curious to know. I mean, do you need to make it a legal entity? Do you need to incorporate? How do you if you're not a lawyer, how do you put these legal documents together? Who do you choose? Who gets into the community? What kind of people do you need to form a complete, self-contained unit, if you will? Stefan Verstappen is our emergency preparedness expert, and we're talking survival, post-apocalypse. Back with more of our conversation right after these.
Back to the conversation on the Richard Syrett Show. News Talk, Saga 960 AM.
We're learning about forming communities. And when you think about it, there's no downside to this. At the end of the day, you may just end up saving some money, kind of a hedge against inflation, as we'll discuss. There's no downside. You make some new friends. You get to associate with like-minded people, and you learn a little bit about self-sufficiency. And if the big asteroid collision doesn't happen, or there's no EMP event, or Western civilization lives to fight another day, then great. No downside here. Stefan Verstappen, chinastrategies.com. So first of all, let's talk generally about who do you need in your life, in this community to become sort of this parallel polis or society and a self-sustained community? Kinds of people you should have.
The first kind of people you need to have is people that you can trust. People like yourself, and people that have skills, people that can do things, people that can organize, that can work together. And this is very difficult, Richard. This is the most difficult part of forming a community, is finding the right kind of people. Now, there's a number of reasons for this. Number one, the government, the powers that be, have worked ceaselessly to cause division amongst the people. We are, at each other's throats over 1,000 different issues. Families can't get along. Friends can't get along. You and your school friends can't talk to each other anymore. Everybody is bickering and fighting amongst each other over all kinds of absolutely ridiculous issues, made up issues. But this is done on purpose. The government, going back as far as you can research it, does not want people to work together. If we work together, then we don't need the government, and then they don't have power over us. For example, if we source our own medical insurance, and that's one of the dozens of communities you could start yourself. It's a co-op. It's a medical insurance co-op. You get together with 10 other families and you buy your own medical insurance at a discount, far cheaper than you could buy it by yourself. And this is what our great-grandparents did. That's how they provided for their own health needs, is they pooled their money. Even if it's not the end of the world, you're already going to save money on health insurance. Same thing with food. You form a food co-op. You work together. I'm joining one. I'll be there this Thursday here where I live in southwestern Ontario, a very strong Mennonite community. There is a community here already. They have a food co-op. You invest, and whatever money you want to invest, $100, $200, you invest it in the local farmers. And then when the crops come through, you will get a big box of vegetables and produce and whatever it is that farmer is producing, and you'll get your $100 worth in produce back. This will save you a lot of money from not having to buy it at the grocery store. They also have numerous other cooperative ventures whereby, for example, they have a labor board. So if you need somebody to do fencing in your house, you can call them. They'll have the fencers, they have the electricians, they have the mechanics. They'll come and help you, and they'll do it at a grave discount. So even if it's not the end of the world, by working together, you will save money, you'll make networking connections. And right now, with the hyperinflation and the way things are going, anytime you can save money is a great thing.
Sure, we'll
But
come back, and in the coming weeks, we'll talk about some of these other elements in more detail. But just on the forming of a community, and you mentioned like one aspect of that could be forming a food co-op. You get a bunch of neighbors together, you pool your money. So if you're a food co-op, does that mean that you can buy wholesale and save?
you're buying directly from the producers. You're buying directly from the farmers. Now, when the shelves in the grocery store start to go empty, that's because their supply chain has been cut off. But the local farmers, I'm surrounded by farms here, and the local farmers will still be producing. They might not be able to produce enough because of the lack of, fertilizer or the lack of transportation to major markets, but they're still producing. And we can go to them directly and buy from them directly and cut out the middleman. So, yeah, you can get a good deal on food.
Right, because you're buying in bulk. If you have, let's say, 50 people in your community, that's a lot of groceries. So you're buying in bulk.
Yes.
And that gives you, some negotiating power. And if you buy in bulk, things are usually less expensive. And as you say, you're not going to the Safeway or to Sobeys, I guess, or whatever. You're not paying the markup on the food. You're buying directly from the producer as a food co-op. All right. Let's find out, how do we sign on to the Complete Guide to Forming Communities course?
Okay, so it's a tricky process creating communities. Like, you had all those good questions earlier on, and each one of those questions would require a 4-hour seminar to answer correctly. But I've put most of the information on an online course, and to access it directly, you should go to my other website. It's www.formingcommunities.com, and there you'll have all the information, and you can sign up. And I recommend that when you sign up for the course, you immediately create a small community. You get 3, 4, 5 other people chip in on the course. I already spoke with the people that are organizing the course. They have no problem if you want to have 4 or 5 people sit in on the course with you. Normally, they would require everybody to pay an individual tuition, but we can all pay it as a community. Everybody watch it together. And then after each lesson, discuss it amongst each other. What do you think we should do? What ideas did you like? What ideas did you not like? And by doing so, we begin the conversation of how to put this community together. So it's www.formingcommunities.com, and I go over all the questions that you asked.
All right, and we'll go over a lot more. We'll cover a lot of ground in the coming weeks. Stefan Verstappen, thank you so much.
Thank you, Richard.
All right, plenty of shows still to come. Hour 2. Stay with us.